Good morning, friends. Today we shall learn about the new topic of the 12th standard, that is the first chapter, that is the reproduction in the organism. Now, in the last lecture, we had already seen about the asexual mode of reproduction. We had also seen the different types of mode of reproduction, that is asexually, in the plants as well as the animals. In the animals, they included the binary fission, then the budding, then the regeneration, then the fragmentation, spore formation, then the structures responsible, that is the conidia, zoospores and the other things. Now, in plants we had also talked about the vegetative propagation, that is the by the root, stem and leaves, that is the buds, eyes, tubers, then the modification through the stem, that is the rhizomes, then through the bryophyllum we can say in the leaves as such. Now, in this lecture we shall talk about the sexual mode of reproduction in the organism. Now, sexual mode of reproduction, children, in the organism involves three stages. The first stage is, that is the pre-fertilization. The other one, that is the fertilization, and the last one, that is the post-fertilization. Now, in the pre-fertilization event, that is before the fertilization process takes place, there are certain stages in which the organism has to be prepared. Now, basically, in an organism, in the last lecture also we had discussed that is if an organism has to reproduce, they have to reach a stage wherein they are capable to reproduce. That is the phase in which, or the stage in which the organism is likely to reproduce, is known as the juvenile phase. Now, in the pre-fertilization, there are two main events. That is the first one, that is the gamete transfer, and the other one, that is the gametogenesis. Now, if we talk about the various stages, there is the gamete transfer and the gametogenesis. So, the first comes the gametogenesis and the next comes the gamete transfer. Now, gametogenesis means what, children? It is the stage wherein the organism produces the gametes. Now, as we are talking about the sexual reproduction, there are two types of gametes, that is the male gamete and the female gamete. And once the gamete formation takes place, the gamete transfer takes place. Now, how does it take place in different organisms like the plants and the animals? Let us talk about, children. Now, the first thing that is known as the gametogenesis. Now, the gametogenesis, meaning the process by which the gametes are being produced, is known as the gametogenesis. That is the process by which gametes are produced. It is known as gametogenesis. Now, if we talk about the gametes, mainly the gametes are of two types, that is the male gamete and the female gamete. Now, the male gamete is generally, it is known as the antherozoid or the sperm, and the female gamete, that is the ovum or the egg, we can say. But in some cases, in the organism wherein both the gametes, we can say, they are not distinguished, that is the male and the female gametes cannot be differentiated. So in that case, there is a technical term being used. It is known as the homogametes. So homogametes refers to which condition, children? Wherein the male and the female gametes are not being distinguished, we can say. And the another one, that is the heterogametes. Heterogametes is nothing but the gametes in which both the male and the female gametes are being distinguished. Like in the male gamete, it is known as the antherozoid or the sperm, where in the female it is known as the ovum or the egg, we can say, children. Now, if we talk about the sexuality in the organism, there are different types of the organism exhibit different sexuality in the organism, we can say. Like if we talk about the fungi and we can say the plants, we can say, wherein both the, we can say, male gamete and the female gamete, they are bisexual. In that case, it is known as the homothallic or and monoecious. Now, homothallic meaning, homo meaning same, that is, if that is the bisexual condition, so it is termed as the what class? Homothallic and the monoecious. And in the other case, it is known as the heterothallic and the dioecious. Okay, so these are the ways by which we can say, okay, the sexuality in the organism can be exhibited. So for a bisexual condition, it is known as the what class? That is the homothallic and the monoecious for bisexual, and the other one, that is for unisexual, that is the heterothallic and the dioecious, we can say. Okay, now if we talk about the animals, children, so animals, they are having the unisexual and the bisexual. Unisexual meaning the only one reproductive organ is being present, whereas in the bisexual, both the reproductive organs are being present. Now in that case, bisexual condition is also known as the hermaphrodites. It is also known as what, children? Hermaphrodites. Now already we have learned in the chapter number 4 in the 11th standard, children, in the classification of the animal kingdom, and you are all aware with the technological term, children, we can say. Now, so this is all about the, we can say, the gametogenesis, or we can say, sorry, the gametogenesis, we can say. Now, talking about the other one, that is how the cell division takes place. Now see, as far as the cell is being concerned, or the type of cells which are present in the gametes, it's generally the haploid, we can say. So the gametes, we can say, are haploid. Now see, if the gametes are haploid, then they undergo which division, children? That is the meiotic division. Whereas if the gametes are diploid, then they undergo the meiosis. That is known as what class? Meiosis division, or that is the reductional division, we can say. Now, if we talk about the differentiating the plant body or the other organism, we can say, that is the monera, algae, fungi, and we can say that is the bryophytes. They are having the, we can say, haploid plant body. Now this is very important with respect to the NEET, we can say, children, NEET examination. Whereas the higher organism from the bryophytes, that is the what, children? Pteridophytes. Then the animals. Then the angiosperm, gymnosperm. All these organisms, we can say, they exhibit the diploid plant body, we can say. They exhibit what, children? That is the diploid plant body, we can say. Now, as we all know that diploid plant body, if the gametes are diploid, they undergo what division? That is the meiosis division. Now, we all know that in the 11th standard we had talked about the life cycle, okay, of the certain organisms. That is the haplontic, diplontic and the haplodiplontic life cycle. So, if the organism is haploid, they will undergo mitotic, then will produce the spores, and the other organism, what I can say, diploid spores. And if the organism exhibit the diploid gametes, then undergo the meiosis, and the haploid spores are being produced alternatively, we can say. Now, if we talk about the next, the process that is known as the gametogenesis. So gametogenesis involves nothing but the process by which the male and the female gametes are being fused together. It is known as the what class? The gamete transfer as such. Now let us talk about the gamete transfer. Now, up till now children, we have talked about the gametogenesis. Now we shall talk about the gamete transfer, meaning how the gametes are being transferred and what are the conditions by which it gets transferred, children. Now, that is the gamete transfer. Now, for gamete transfer, we can say generally the gametes, that is the male gamete, is motile. Motile yani ki it moves from one place to another. While the female gamete is stationary. Now, if the male gamete is motile while the female gamete is stationary, the male gamete has to transfer to the female gamete body, children. So in that case, there should be a medium for its movement. Like we can say in the fungi and the other organism, we can say that is the fungi, algae, bryophytes. They require water for the medium as gamete transfer. Now in some cases there are certain agents which they play a vital role, like in the plants that will come in a shorter while, children. So water is the medium for the transfer of the gametes. Now as the female gamete is stationary, children, the male gamete while transferring to the female, there are chances that it get destroyed, or we can say the female or the male gametes, we can say they die because of the harsh environmental conditions and the other external agents, we can say. So in that case, the male gametes are produced in 1,000 numbers. Like in humans, each sperm, or we can say 100 ml of or sperm contains 1,000 sperms, we can say, wherein the one of the sperm is enter into the what class? The ovum or the female egg, wherein it ruptures and further the fertilization process, that is the zygote formation, takes place, children. Now, if we talk about the plants, children, so plants, they have the staminate body, we can say, and the pistillate. Now staminate for the male body, reproductive body, and the pistillate, that is the female reproductive body, we can say. Now the male reproductive staminate consists of the anther and the filament. That is the stamen constitute the what class? Anther and the filament. Whereas the pistil contains the stigma, style and the ovary. Ovary contains the what class? Ovules or the egg, children, we can say. Now the structure that we will learn in the next chapter, children. Now what happens is that the anther, which contains the pollen grains, they has to be transferred to the female body or the pistil. So in that case, there is some external agents which are required, or there is a process known as the pollination. Let us see what it has to say, children. So if we recall this structure, there is the stamen and the filament, which contains the pollen grains, and there is the stigma, style, and the ovary, and this is the ovules. Now, so this whole term is known as the pistil, while this whole is known as the, sorry, this is the anther, this is the stamen. So this contains the what, children? Pollen grains. This pollen grain has to be transferred. Now if it is on the same flower, that is if the plant is bisexual, then it is not an issue, children. But if the plant is unisex, that is unisexual, then the pollen grains has to be transferred to the process by the help of pollination, children. Now pollination means what? The process by which the pollen grains are being transferred from the stigma, or we can say anther, to the stigma of the same flower or the different flower, and it can be achieved by the help of pollinating agents like the wind, water, chemical, humans, birds. Okay, so in that case, these are the ways by which the gametogenesis takes place, we can say. Okay, so the male gamete is being transferred to the female gamete, wherein they fuse together and form the what class? The zygote, by the process of fertilization, children. Okay, now, so this finishes the pre-fertilization event. Now we shall talk about the next process, that is known as the fertilization event. Now fertilization means process by which male and the female gamete fuse together to form zygote. It is known as what, children? Fertilization. Now the male gamete, like we can say the sperm, that is the male gamete, plus the ovum, that is the female gamete. When they fuse together, they form the what, children? Zygote. Now in the animals like the crocodile and the other turtles and all those animals, the fertilization that takes place is external fertilization. So fertilization can be divided into two categories, that is the external fertilization and the internal fertilization. Now in the external fertilization, the ovum and the sperm, they, what you can say, fertilize outside the body of an organism. Now in that case, they again require a medium for the growth or the fertilization process. Again can be water, some other materials, or we can say some chemicals, we can say. So in that case, external fertilization is the fertilization capable outside the body of an organism, whereas internal fertilization meaning that is the fertilization which takes place inside the body of an organism, children, we can say. Okay, now over here there is one disadvantage in the external fertilization, that is the zygote or the embryo which is being formed, or the fertilization which takes place externally. There are possibilities that the predators like the other higher organism in the ecosystem may destroy the eggs or the zygote, we can say. Like the frog, they lay the eggs externally in the water. So many fishes and the other higher organism, they eat it. So in that case, there are very few chances, like out of 1,000, only hundreds of the zygotes they mature and further develop into the what class, children? The other higher organisms, or the tadpole, or the little frog, we can say. So this is all about, we can say, the fertilization event, children. Okay, so this is all about the concept of the pre-fertilization, then the fertilization, and in the next lecture we shall talk about the post fertilization events. Thank you.